We have not received operational NOC for Karot. Why? Because DG Environment has not been posted for the last 2 years. And lenders require that you should have a valid environmental NOC if you are operating the project. So these are the problems and these are the challenges which we incur. There is bureaucratic hurdles, reluctance on part of various GOP entities to take timely decisions. For example, in case of Karot, there were about 120 shipments and every shipment was delayed. Why? Sometimes there were Eid holidays. Sometimes the officer in charge was not there. Ship is there at the port. Sometimes we have to pay huge damages for every shipment. About there is a delay of 10 to 15 days. And then equipment has to be transported from the site because it is all the things are arranged in a proper manner. Then there is a resolution of important issues take a very long time for GOP departments. For example, when we have achieved financial close, the government levies sales tax on construction services. It took us nearly 2 years to resolve this issue because if the project has achieved financial close, how can you load the additional cost of 16%? In case of Karot, it was $172 million. So it took 2 years to resolve this issue. There are frequent changes in the policies. Then there is an interpretation of policies. So it creates some bad impression. So a lot of challenges are there. There are cumbersome procedures and delays in getting permission and consents. A lot of, according, if you see the agreements, about 21 consents are required from the government of Pakistan entities. They take a lot of time to basically give those consents. There's a lack of, I have told you, there's a lack of ownership of provinces projects initiated by there is no integrated approach between the provinces and the federal government. NEPRA is a regulator. We fully honor it, but NEPRA itself takes a lot of time. For example, our EPC stage tariff was calculated at $1 is equal to 100. We completed the project in June 29, 2022. We were paid at $1 is equal to 100. So interim tariff NEPRA gave after 9 months. So this was all the financial loss to the company, direct financial loss to the company. Hydropower projects are located generally in very remote area like Sukhi Kanari. Our Kohala project is located. There is a lack of infrastructure and adverse security situation. And obviously political instability and lack of decision making at various government departments is a big challenge. Now, let me talk about renewables. Now, God has blessed tremendous renewable potential in Pakistan. Wind potential is more than 346,000 megawatts. Solar is 2.9 million megawatts. Hydro is 60,000 megawatts. These are the huge renewable energy potential. Now, government has taken some initiative, at least I will say, due to which we see some renewable energy projects in Pakistan. For example, government has prepared solar and wind maps, which identify where the solar resources are located and where wind resources are located. Government of Pakistan has announced renewable energy policies to encourage investors. These policies enshrine all the benefits and incentives which have been given to the private sector and developing projects. There is an organization, PBIB, which provides one window facility to the private sector investments. This standardized security packages there, which includes power purchase agreement, which includes implementation agreements, so that long negotiations does not take place. And this is the only unique business in which government does provide sovereign guarantee for the payment obligations of the power purchase, because there is only one power purchaser, so government has guaranteed. If you see what our projections are, at the moment, renewable energy share is 31%. And in 2031, it will increase to 62%. This is a breakup. So government thinking is that renewable energy should play a big role in Pakistan. Why? It is the cheapest now. Solar projects based on solar energy and wind energy are very cheaper. Day before yesterday, government has announced 600 megawatts solar power project at Muzaffarpur. Now the conclusion is that Chinese investors have already established success stories in developing renewable energy projects. And China Three Gorges is leading renewable energy project company in Pakistan. We have abundant renewable energy potential. Demand for renewable energy projects is tremendous, as IGSAP has indicated. We are heading towards a bigger chunk of renewable energy projects. We have announced policies to encourage investors to develop renewable energy projects. Institution is already there. Chinese investors having financial and technical strength are encouraged to develop clean and green energy, which means hydro, wind, and solar projects in Pakistan. So with this, thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to hear the whole story behind the CTG in Kerot and some wonderful suggestions. And I think, I mean, coming towards one of the very key points, which are also trying to deep down further into is the challenges being faced by the renewable energy sector. So yeah, there was very relevant, I mean, about all the issues about the circular debt, the payment delays and other hurdles being faced, along with many of that can actually be addressed through a strong, I mean, bringing consistency in the policies and I mean, fulfilling what has been actually committed, just like you talked about the wind curtailment issues. That's actually one of the very major challenges being faced by the renewable energy sector. I think just continue that debate a bit, would actually request Taimur Adil Saab to let us know his interventions on the topic, and after which we'll be coming to Dr. Latu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Zubair Saab. Thank you, Daud Saab, and the entire gathering over here. It's very humbling to be in a room where there's so much expertise on renewable energy, and I'm learning by the minute over here, no doubt. Thank you, SDPI, for hosting this. So I just like to start by saying, first of all, I'm no energy specialist. And I want to clear that at the start. I'm learning. I'm understanding more about the potential of green technology. It's fantastic, sir, to see the projects that you just ran us through and the sheer volume of potential that exists. There are a few things, however, that I was taking note of, and I would like to just touch upon these points briefly. So there's no doubt that this is an excellent platform because I think CPEC is the backbone of everything that's happening in Pakistan. There's no question about it today. And it's great to see that we're talking about greening CPEC because Pakistan as a country is heavily impacted by climate change. While we're one of the lowest contributors globally, we're one of the highest affected countries, and the floods that have taken place last monsoon, and then again, there is talk of, further sort of monsoon flooding, having affected us. It's a never-ending cycle. So Pakistan has to face climate change, and it has to incorporate climate change into almost everything that it plans going ahead. Now, we're also one of the world's largest populations. I think we're 5th largest. We've overtaken Brazil. And yet we remain one of the most underserved when it comes to energy. And energy is the fuel of economic growth. So if we plan to grow as a country, we need to meet our energy needs effectively. Now, what I can say is, and what I have heard and read prior to this session as well, is that we need to act faster than we are. Because the truth is our energy requirement is growing. The need to green infrastructure is greater than ever. And we need to focus on sustainability because we can't perpetually rely on people lending us money for this as well. Now, there's one element here that in addition to the current modality would be helpful to consider is the use of private equity. Because private equity, energy, as I've understood from a few people who are in the space, is an excellent thing to bet on in terms of green energy because the premiums are rising with time. So what that means is green projects are increasingly attracting investment in the world. Why can't Pakistan attract private equity? Why can't we get private equity into this very opportunity that the panel today is discussing? And the advantage of private equity is that it can be managed as a vertical that stands with the government, but is not necessarily hampered by the same regulations. All you need to do is set up a climate change investment zone, for example, or a green zone. You can have laws and rules over there that apply, that allow you to sort of independently manage the funds that arrive. We can do this in partnership with the FPR, with the SCCP and other bodies. But the point I'm trying to make is it's so much money in the region right now. In the Gulf, we know that they're overfinanced. In Saudi Arabia, as I speak, if you look at Vision 2030, there are trillions of dollars there. China has money. The UAE is pumping money into this. Qatar just hosted COP last year, and now, sorry, Qatar didn't host COP. Qatar was working on it, but there's immense potential over here to attract capital to Pakistan. So private equity moves fast, it moves quick, and it's ROI driven. And the other good thing about private equity is that the people investing in it take a longer term position by default over there as well, as long as the projects, have a 10-year horizon. The other element that, sir, I noticed is there was talk about government departments, and the lack of capability. Now, being a management consultant, we work primarily with the public sector, and I've done it for over a decade myself. That is something that applies to everything in Pakistan. We need to improve the capacity of departments. And over there, something that is proven very effective, and we've done this in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, metrics and dashboards are very important to track processes. So for example, even when it comes to regular planning projects in the government, it's amazing to see how once the money has been allocated, what happens after that is not really tracked effectively. So when it comes to the projects you've mentioned, sir, and ones where I think these are the most important to keep an eye out for, where are they being bottlenecked? What is happening in particular, right? Now we live in an age of where data is universal and it's infinite also in its potential. So can we use the power of analytics and metrics and dashboards, which Pakistan has done in other sectors, to also help catalyze the green revolution that we're talking about? And particularly in government departments, to help decision makers in government, from the ministers to the secretaries to people overseeing this, realize in time where things are falling behind and to act sooner and faster. And the last point over here, sir, is that when it comes to provincial, federal, and political ownership, we have to tie all of this with the larger national imperatives. SIFC is something that is making the headlines right now. It's a huge platform that is being set up, and it's for investment. So how does this dovetail with SIFC, right? We have the political leadership, we have the bureaucratic leadership, everyone is endorsing SIFC. So why can't the greening of CPEC be front and center in that agenda? It must be, because that's where everyone who matters is today. I think if we get these ingredients in place, and what is already an amazing initiative will become even better with time. And all of us, as a citizen, we all stand ready to serve our country and to help make this a success. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Taimur Saab. I think so trying to figure out some of these financing mechanisms that can actually mobilize these investments, and particularly enhancing, tapping those funds that you rightly pointed out. So I think wonderful discussion. With this, I think I'll be moving to Dr. Liaquat. Dr. Liaquat, you've also been working around the CPEC portfolio a long time. How do you actually propose, how do we actually move ahead with these challenges, and what should the relevant stakeholders should perhaps do? Any key points that you want to highlight?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ved. Thank you, all the panelists, distinguished panelists. They talk about more, renewable energy. And also, thanks to SDPI for keeping the renewable energy agenda afloat. This is very important, and I think keeping in view the economic situation in Pakistan and the oil prices, which are basically skyrocketing in the international market, I think this is the right time basically to move to towards renewable energy. Some of the queries or questions they were raised basically, and some of the hurdles basically investors and the people they are working in the renewable energy they are facing in Pakistan. So I will basically respond to some of them. Before, I think Adil Saab highlighted SIFC in green CPEC. That's a good suggestion, but I think there is some limitation also because the focus is not the same. I want to highlight basically SIFC is for investment purpose, and CPEC is basically not only investment. It's basically a learning, a corridor, a knowledge corridor. So I think the focus should more basically be to learn from China, and definitely investment is there. It's our need. It's part of that. But I think more is to learn from China, and that's why from the infrastructure we are moving to other sectors like agriculture, industrial cooperation, definitely. Information technology, science and technology, and so many other areas. So these areas, if you look at them very closely, they are more basically people-centric, and people-centric need knowledge sharing and things like that. Definitely investment come with that. Basically, it's a secondary thing also, and sometime in parallel. So this basically is the distinction between SIFC and CPEC. The second thing is CPEC is bilateral, and SIFC is basically for the Gulf region right now. Yeah, there are CPEC, there is a provision for the third party participation. But anyway, we haven't yet developed that framework, how basically to bring the third party, mean other country into CPEC framework. So the MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they are already working on it. Another thing about the bureaucratic hurdle that was mentioned, definitely we have this issue, and I think bureaucracy, institutional capacity, it is an ongoing concern in Pakistan, and any country in our development state, I think if you look at Europe, how they're developed, now look at China, the way they're developed. So it took time. Normally the institutional capacity develop with the economic development. So basically they reinforce each other and they support each other. If there is an incentive, for example, for economic development, so the bureaucracy and they develop their capacity also. So it's a two-way, but at the same time I would basically, it's not an excuse basically to say that bureaucracy not functioning because we are not developing. I think there are basically some initiatives at the government level they have been taken. For example, PPIB sir has already served there. It's a one-window facility. As far as the generation is concerned, when it comes to the NHA, for example, and so many other initiatives, for example, for the industrial development, the portal they have been developed, dashboard they are being developed. So we are working on it. Hassan Sahab already worked in the KP on so many things, similar things. So we are slowly and gradually, but whenever the investment, for example, if investment is coming to Pakistan, so these things will develop alongside also. Yeah, there are some administrative decisions they need to be taken. For example, much of the challenges which as Zubairi Saab highlighted, I think they are basically administrative in nature. They don't need basically structural reform in the bureaucracy. For example, if DG is not available, it doesn't mean basically we have to go for a structural reform, which takes, which is painful. But it just an administrative decision. And for issue like that, we had Hassan Saab would recall me that we had a CPEC review meeting. I think we have already conducted more than 50 meetings like this, similar meetings. When Hassan Saab left, I think I myself conducted 3 and 4 meetings, arrange these meetings. So that was a platform, basically issues like that, they would, they used to be discussed there. But anyway, we have discontinued. So definitely the institutional problems are there. But I think the country like Pakistan, the developing stage we are, such issues, they existed in China, also in other countries also. More about, now coming towards the renewable energy, I think, which is today's topic. I think Zubairi Saab also highlighted, how much potential we have, I think, in million megawatts in solar and wind, and definitely the power is there, the potential is there. The renewable energy endowment in Pakistan is very, very much rich. And I think in Pakistan, for example, the average, the solar irradiance we are getting in Pakistan, it's more than 5.4, 5.5, something like that. Even there are regions where we receive more than 7.5 kilowatt hour per meter square also. And I think in Pakistan, I don't know exactly, but I can say, with a guess, I would say, that the worst, not the worst, but the least feasible region in Pakistan would again be best, from the best in Germany. So that's, the endowment is there, technologies, technologies they are fastly developing, I think, and the policies are also there. In Pakistan, if you look, for example, at the policy landscape for the renewable energy development, so many things have been done. We had renewable energy policy which was developed in 2006. It was basically extended in 2019, and then I think this year we come up with another policy, which is the fast track renewable energy development policy. Under this policy, basically would be developing, adding 10,000 renewable energy into the into our national grid. So these policies are there, and apart from this policy, our goal is basically to take it to 30%, excluding hydel. With hydel by 2030, we want to get it to 60%. So the goals are there, the policies are there. And the second thing, we are also signatory to the many international, commitment like the Paris Agreement on climate, Kyoto Protocol, so many things. And this basically allow us to get access to the climate finance, to carbon credits and things like that. So for investors, this is also and an opportunity to invest in the renewable energy and get access to these finances. So we are already signatory to so many things, and we have net metering, we have feed-in tariff. I can count on that. So many work has already been done. But despite all these, the endowment we have, the policies which are there, renewable energy sector in Pakistan is not showing, a sign of improvement that much. If you look at the opportunities which are available, I think we are far behind. I think today, as we speak, the renewable energy contribution in Pakistan in energy, I think it's 6.8%, something like that. Including, and if you include hydel, 25.8% or something like that. So I think it becomes 31%, and we wanted to take it to 60% by 2030. Definitely is possible, but I think we need some comprehensive work. We talk about the integration of department, but I think there is a need of integration of policies also. For example, we have energy policy on one side, so many energy policies on one hand. We have industrial policy. Hassan Saab already worked on the industrial policy in the KP. He has developed for the KP also. So I think what we need to do at this point basically is to integrate these policies also, and we come up with another basically green industrial policy, something like that. So this is possible. The reason is, if we have an umbrella policy, and under that we have different policy in which are synchronized with each other, I think the work can be facilitated. We should come basically with green incentives also, for the industrial development. So this basically is one, way to get in, basically to benefit from the renewable energy markets. The technology which are developing, and sometime, when in many forums it has been discussed, even to the Chinese companies, the solar manufacturer, we normally say that you come and relocate to Pakistan. I think a sole company, only a manufacturing company can't relocate, because with it, so many suppliers, renewable energy, not about solar panels. There are so many cores, there are many, other components which are affiliated with, associated with the renewable energy development. So I think all the ecosystem need to be developed in Pakistan, and for that we need an industrial policy to support the relocation of those industries, including the solar manufacturing, solar, wind, and other, technologies also. It can then be possible. And second, one important thing is, we need to learn from China also. Not only China, there are so many developing countries, developed countries. If you look, for example, renewable energy, the energy wind policy of Germany, I think we need to look into that, how basically Germany transform their country, in the renewable energy sector. So there is a comprehensive policy which included everything. And with that policy, even though they suffered a little bit about that policy, because they focus more on implementation, so the relocation, the technology, they give it to China, and China basically then picked up it from there. Even they are surpassed, the Germany also. So they were competing, and now they have surpassed also. Anyway, but Germany has done it. China is doing it now. Okay, so policies are there. The examples are there. We can take insight from there also. One last thing about the renewable energy market. Why do we talk about renewable energy generation? I think when we think about renewable energy, every time we think about generation. So very obvious there is in the generation market. So I think, if you look at the possibilities which the renewable energy sector offers, it's a huge range. For example, it's not about, for example, in Pakistan, it's about the renewable energy, the energy efficiency, energy conservation. We don't talk about that. For example, if a company in Pakistan, we have a circular debt like that, issues like that. So we have the the industrial sector, for example, they are suffering from the waste, because there is outdated facilities available, which basically is costing them high. So I think we should also focus on the Chinese market. The companies who are working in the energy efficiency, energy conservation, they should be invited to Pakistan. When it comes to energy conservation, I think we need to think out of the box, because I was looking somewhere about the energy storage. When we think about energy storage, we think about batteries. But there are other unique ways also. Germany is now doing what? How do they conserve energy? Basically, renewable energy, they are intermittent, non-dispatchable. They're not available every time. So you have either to have a huge storage facilities to store that energy during during the lower, the demand is low, and you have basically to supply from their batteries when the demand is high. But I think, if you look at the infrastructure which is needed, I think we in Pakistan can't afford it. But there is a unique way. In Germany, they did what? Basically, there is a lake, a pond. When the energy is high, they pump water to the mountain and they store it there. And when the energy is needed, basically they, through turbines, they generate another electricity. So there is a unique way to store electricity, to store power, through a natural way. So these are possibility. I think we need to think out of box. We basically have to expand our horizon, think, about different possibilities, how renewable energy can play a role in greening and leaning our industry. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Liaquat. I think some very wonderful points. And I completely agree with most of the points, particularly you highlighted about. Definitely there has been there have been good efforts coming from the government sector, particularly in providing the policy support, but we do see some gaps still there, which we actually have to address. And definitely you very rightly pointed about the need for an integrated approach. I mean, the industrial policies and the energy policies, so perhaps coming under a similar framework. But I think just over here, before going to Pang, we also perhaps need to see, I mean, just taking lead from the challenges which Zubairi Saab mentioned and the solutions that have been provided from the both ends. Perhaps we also need to have a bit of discussion around if there is any short-term solutions, perhaps that could actually ease the challenges being faced by the private companies, or perhaps any steps which we can actually take as of now, so we actually start seeing some of the impacts coming over the longer run as well. So I think perhaps we'll be actually coming to that point as well. But before that, let me just go to Mr. Pang from BRIGC. Mr. Pang, you have been listening to the debate being raised by most of the key stakeholders here, addressing the challenges faced by the Chinese stakeholders, as well as the policy gaps that currently do exist. So, I mean, in reference to what you have been doing, if you can also sort of comment on that and let us know what your interventions are around those points. Yes. Spang, are you with us? Okay, so I think.
Xiaopang Nioma.
Okay, I think just before we actually go to that, I would actually request Dr. Khalid to his interventions. In the meanwhile, let me just check with him.
Yep, thank you. I think a lot has been covered, starting from Dr. Abid's intervention, that there is a poly crisis, there is a 3C crisis, climate, COVID, and conflict. And then from Mr. Lucas rightly mentioned that there is a need to have sustainable practices going on, and they're coupling with economic growth as well. Dr. Hassan mentioned pertinent points. Sir, your targeted intervention was very, very, very useful. Zubairi Saab, sir, wonderful presentation, very detailed. And then Dr. Saab mentioned a very holistic and integrated approach, how we can use CPEC as a growth engine. I have few points noted down in my notes. One is that if we want to take diplomatic discourse, we need to have this. This is a two-way process. We need to introspect what are the Chinese need and what are the Pakistan's need. To understand both economies, we need to understand the changing economies of these two countries. Well, if we look at China, the model China followed in its first phase, that was internal economy. They sought improvement in their internal markets, their internal circumstances, how to get people out of poverty. And then in second phase, they started to expand their economy towards the other countries and shifted their manufacturing and industrial sector to their respective countries. Well, in Pakistan, there are multifaceted crises in terms of economy, energy, environment, you name it. In terms of economy, we have trade deficit, fiscal deficit, we have trust deficit in terms of foreign policy, or you name it, diplomatic discourse. We need Chinese help. China helped us in energy crisis back in 2007 when there was accessibility crisis in Pakistan. China built those short-term coal-based power plants, which were the need of that time. But this time we need affordability. We need options to solve these affordability crisis, which is, I would say, due to these independent power producers and the rising capacity payments due to interest rates and higher exchange rate parity in Pakistan. What is the solution? Obviously, energy transition. We need investments in grid system. We need investments in renewable energy. We need to sort this climate crisis, which is crippling our economy at the same time. What China is doing in terms of climate change, phenomenal work in terms of last year's COP in Egypt. G77 plus China, they made substantial progress towards climate action and other sort of things. One thing that China and Pakistan in terms of diplomatic front can do, they can establish their just energy transition partnerships, JETPs, just like the South Asia and South Africa and Vietnam and Indonesia has been doing. They are targeting their energy sector. They are putting their house in order in terms of energy transition, and they are attracting finance in terms of just energy transition partnerships. So they move from fossil fuels, dirty fuels, towards modern and more sustainable fuels. This is one thing. Second thing is that Pakistan's energy crisis, I would say the uptake of renewable energy in Pakistan is more linked with transmission system than it is linked with generation system. We need to have investments coming into our transmission system so that the evacuation problem or transmitting electricity from generation to end user is solved. So for that, we need to strengthen our bilateral ties, track 1, track 2, track 1.5 diplomacy measures can be taken. Regional network of think tank, I think Dr. Hassan has mentioned that could be phenomenal in bringing these solutions. And then renegotiation of PPAs, power purchasing agreement, is one of the linchpin of Pakistan's affordability crisis. I think bilateral diplomatic discourse can help with that as well. Dr. Saab mentioned carbon credits. China is building their world largest carbon credit market. I would say the vice premier of China, when visited Pakistan recently, he mentioned innovation corridor. He wanted to transform CPEC into this innovation corridor, which can broaden the scope as well. In terms of energy economics, there is HO model of trade, which tells us Chinese is a capital intensive economy, Pakistan is labor intensive or labor abundant economy. Labor is cheaper in Pakistan. What China can do, they would get benefit if they shift their industries to SEZs of Pakistan. SEZs combined with renewable energy projects or captive power renewable energy, that can solve the problem for Pakistan. Then Hassan Saab mentioned this geopolitical scenario that BRICS can do phenomenal works. Their new development bank, just like G20 meeting announced new corridor, we already have a corridor. We need to fasten the thing here. Then SIFC's role, that could be phenomenal in building this diplomatic discourse with Pakistan and China. Lastly, I cannot stress enough, there is a need to explore more renewable energy mining activities in Pakistan because China is sort of controlling the majority of renewable energy mining manufacturing. Pakistan can do this in terms of renewable energy mining, which many say that the future gold or future oil would be cobalt, lithium, and other renewable energy minings. Lastly, there is a term, specific term, that is green hydrogen diplomacy. We can look into that as well, because hydrogen might be a key or linchpin to solve the energy problems of hard to abate sector as well. So we need to have this coupling of economic growth plus renewable energy plus a better diplomacy, effective diplomacy, through which we can solve this problem of Pakistan, and at the same time providing China benefits they require. So thank you so much. I will end it.
Yes, thank you so much. Definitely. I mean, we were also just yesterday, we were talking to a developer with them, I think
Yeah.
in Pakistan, and they were really concerned about the whole curtailment issues they're actually facing. And I think Dr. Khalid has very rightly mentioned that along with the consistency, transmission, and distribution is actually one of the very key points which actually have to be addressed. I mean, a lot of good is happening because of that as well. And I think definitely for that, we also need to do some work around the industrial sector as well. I mean, we need to have the much demand, and that's actually one of the very key points that with the SEZs coming in, perhaps those areas will also be addressed as well. Thank you, Dr. Saab, also for highlighting about the different financing mechanisms, including exploring if there is a possibility of coming up with a Chinese just energy transition partnership for, I mean, fostering the investments towards the renewable energy sector. I mean, definitely carbon credits, as you also pointed out, Dr. Jafet also mentioned around that. I mean, definitely that's also, we need to actually learn from the Chinese best practices in that areas as well. So I think we have just been now being joined by Mr. Tan from BRIGC, and we have been discussing a lot of that. So Mr. Tan, I'll be coming to you with your interventions, and how do you actually see RE sector being further Mr. Pang, can you hear us? You're not audible. If you could just turn off your video, I think there's some internet connectivity issues that you were. Yeah. Okay. No, ours is fine. I guess we just check. Okay, think perhaps we can actually come back. We can again go towards a panel with the second round of questions. If Dr. Hassan, I think perhaps let him. He's just doing some work around his end. So perhaps again, Dr. Hassan, coming towards your end. I mean, how do you see actually these challenges, and perhaps if you have any suggestions on the key areas that can actually be done to, I mean, address these challenges, which most of these panelists have also highlighted.
I think wonderful discussion. I just have 5 recommendations. I do not know whether some of them are, I'm thinking how to rephrase them to actually put them. So my first recommendation will be to the bureaucracy. And I think you can put this in social media. They should learn to unlearn also. That's the first thing. If they can do this, I think Pakistan will be a much better place than it is now. Second, for the government officials and even the ministers and everyone working in the government, and I am also to be blamed in this, I think, especially in the energy sector, I think the word that I would propose is introspection, and Dr. Khalid also spoke about. And I think unless we do not do this, we will keep moving in circles and circles and circles. My third recommendation is for experts like Taimur and me, and some of us who work in the policy domain. I think my recommendation is that we should start recommending policies which are backloaded as opposed to front-loaded, and especially based on what Zubairi Saab said in terms of the land acquisition, because land remains our biggest wealth and property, especially in rural areas. So that remains a big challenge to acquire sometimes. And also, I think when the government identifies these chunks of land, like for instance, railway, they have huge mass of land. Why can't they come in partnership with investors, and instead of selling those land, but set them in joint ventures with land as their equity and as partners in this. My last recommendations, and this might be for you a first, and is on the diplomacy discourse, I think, because our subject today was on the diplomacy course. And I hope someone in the SIFC would hear this. I think easiest course for SIFC is because in the past 10 years, we've actually invested well in terms of building our capacity for doing projects with Chinese. So, I mean, you just can't stall from there. You just can't say that आज हम Middle East के साथ हमारे ताल्लुकात बेहतर हो रहे हैं तो आज उनके साथ हम एक body बना लें और this, it doesn't happen anywhere in the world. So what you should do is keep CPEC as the base platform, because in that you have joint working groups already, like energy, like agriculture, like science and technology, like others also. And then there is a joint working group on third party participation, which MOFA just looks at it, hardly works on it. So if you can bring in and look at the regional politics that is happening now, Saudis are smart. They're looking at G20 and also that, and also because everyone wants to be prosperous at the end of the day. So if we can put the base platform remains CPEC, and within that we invite investors and set up platforms within them for, say, SIFC supports, say, Middle East investment. Because you can't say we are busy with Middle East now, so Chinese you wait, or Turkish investment you wait. You can't say that in this fast moving world. So keep CPEC as base and have other countries come and invest in the already investment, both in terms of capacity, hard work, challenges, and headwinds that we have already discussed. Usse aap aage jana, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't work on new ideas and concepts, work on and policies, work on the policies, ideas and concepts that already exist and improve them from there. अगर हम नहीं करेंगे तो SIFC के बारे में आज से 5 साल बाद बैठ के फिर बात कर रहे होंगे और फिर हम कह रहे होंगे because every policy is made in the true spirit. आप कहते हैं कि industrial policy. and Liaquat spoke very well about what is. So I think हम policy जरूर बनाएं लेकिन backloaded बनाएं. Lastly, हम regionally competitive अगर रह सकते हैं तो फिर ठीक है. Varna, all this will remain a discussion. We have to be regionally competitive, both in terms of our policy, both in terms of our product, second in terms of our productivity, third in terms of our capacity. In this aspect, all of us have to synergize and work together, from government to policymaker to SDPI to experts like Taimur and Zubairi Saab and Liaquat, Paid, and many more. We have to synergize and give our concept. So I'm for SIFC, it's a fantastic platform, but I think the base should remain CPEC.
Yes, thank you. I think we have been joined by Mr. Pang. Mr. Pang, are you with us? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're well. If you could just unmute yourself. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, I do. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly audible.
Okay, thank you so much. And I do apologize for the internet connection problems continuously, but I hope we have resolved this, and I am very pleased and honored to join this important symposium invited by our distinguished host. I am Pang Xiao from the BRI, International Green Development Coalition, and I think we are very suitable for the topic today. That I have been on many occasions on China-Pakistan talks on SDG related issues, and I think the topic today is very relevant to our agenda this year for BRI cooperation. As many of our distinguished speakers have mentioned, this year is the 10th anniversary of Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and we are holding the Chinese government have announced that it will hold the BRI International Cooperation Forum in October, the third one actually. And BRIGC, my organization, is very proud to be facilitating in the organization of the high-level forum on green development in this BRF. And I am also happy to announce that our distinguished chief of SDPI and also other friends from Pakistan are invited to this forum in October, and to have more face-to-face and effective dialogue on how to promote China-Pakistan cooperation on the BRI forum. And CPEC, the topic CPEC we are discussing today is actually one of the role model of BRI cooperation for green in the field of environment and climate. We say there are only two models of South-South cooperation. One is ordinary BRI cooperation, which is based on the need of the recipient country, and China have provided support on construction and technology, knowledge sharing, etc. However, with Pakistan, we have something extra. We took the advantage of our mutual political trust and partnership, the comprehensive partnership, and we have built a strategy together, which is a more effective way to put forward South-South cooperation. We have made the strategy. We have the strategic planning, which is China is have experience on energy planning, on renewable energy planning, etc., so that we can have projects that's in line with our strategy, our partnership strategy. We always say that the best partner is the partner with a good strategy, cooperation strategy. So I think in the future, what CPEC can achieve is not only projects by projects, but looking at the world today, that renewable energy is becoming the next what we should say, the next revolution of energy that is taking over traditional energy. To become the primary energy source at some point. So we would like to, we would propose that we take this opportunity and use CPEC as the implementation tool to put Pakistan in somewhere in this industry or supply chain of this renewable energy future, so that we can not only achieve and have the renewable energy with a very substantive carbon reduction, but also have the find ourselves a new driver for economic growth and put ourselves into the historic wave of renewable energy revolution. I think that is more important to everyone. And I think with this, BRIGC is very keen to conduct more partnerships. Actually, during this year's BRI summit in October, we would like to propose to have some kind of green development investment and financing partnership to solve the problems that we are facing in designing and implementing green projects in developing countries. That is, small projects are less funded, and because the financial institutes find there are either not bankable or do not have the enough de-risk mitigation or risk mitigation measures to make the investors confident enough to invest in these projects. I believe China's model in domestically have provided a good model that maybe can be used in foreign investment. For example, the big investors and the policy financial institutes like the big banks in China and financial institutes in China can provide something we call pre-feasibility, project pre-feasibility funding to help identify which projects are less risky or more bankable to this financial institutes, so that the business financial institutes can follow up and invest in these already de-risked projects. And also with this partnership, we are able to provide capacity building to show or share the experience on multiple climate financial tools such as carbon market, etc., so that we can mobilize more private funding to the green projects in BRI partner countries. And with this, we are also trying to establish a network on experts to share expertise on multiple areas on green development, because we believe that with this kind of partnership, we do not only achieve green, but the more important emphasis should be on development. Without development, anything else will be not realistic. Only achieving green development, we can have the we can have other problems solved, such as economic downturn, etc. So we are not expert in hydropower development, but we admire what we have heard through this symposium. The magnificent projects have been achieved. So BRIGC is ready to provide our help and assistance in any way we can, and we really hope that this symposium is a start for this kind of dialogue to pushing forward diplomatic course to promote SDGs in Pakistan, and I think China can also learn a lot from it. Thank you.
Thank you, and wonderful interventions, Mr. Pang. I think I fully agree that a combined and a coordinated approach is much needed. And thank you. I think really looking forward to meeting the colleagues from BRIGC at the Belt and Road Forum in October as well. And also thank you for, we really look forward to the initiatives that you have mentioned, including the green investment and funding partnerships and the network we're actually trying to establish. So I think even SDPI and these different think tanks we're here, we're also been working towards the very same and the common goals. Yes, we're really looking forward to those interventions as well. So I think some very wonderful discussions and suggestions coming out of it as well. We're now next to the very Q&A and discussion section. So I could actually initially request Mr. Tahid Dhinsa Saab for his interventions. We have received a lot of questions we'll be asking. I'll be sort of combining it and asking this. Over to you, Tahid Saab.
Thank you very much, Ubaid. Thank you very much, Ubaid. Zubair Sahab, you have seen the world. I know you since we were both very young and at private power infrastructure. He's still young, very young. I'm saying we were young as you. So you have seen 1994 policy and Raja Nader Parvez and what happened. I don't need to be. Then once again, that happened again all the time. I just want to ask very clear and direct question. What do you think this current, this block is political in nature, it is economic in nature, or it's a governance challenge, or the tectonic shift in the geopolitics?
It's a very good question you ask. You know, definitely I was there in PPIB, and there is the issue of the governance overall in the country. Let me tell you, it is very unfortunate, we have 19 departments in power sector. All the departments are working for the power sector. Still power sector is not improving because there is lack of coordination. Every department is working in isolation. The other thing is we never learn lessons from the mistakes. We repeatedly commit same mistakes. If you have talked about 1994 policy government implemented, there was surplus power. 6.5. Yes, it was surplus power. Then again, after some time, there is a surplus power. So we don't learn lessons. There is no institution who should carry out what we have learned while implementing a certain policy. What lessons we have learned, what experience we have gained. If we document all the lessons, I think it will be quite wise and we will not take the mistakes. Sometimes there is political interference. So institutions are sometimes not allowed to work independently. If we trust institution, there is no interference, neither political nor bureaucratic, then I think the institutions can perform. So that this is.
Thank you. I think the next question is from Temur. Temur Saab, if Temur Saab can shed some more details on the financing mechanisms to attract the capital funds or how to bring the private sector in the whole village. And this is coming from the point here.
Gee, thank you. So first of all, I don't have all the solutions, obviously. And I think the biggest question I've stated in one of the other presentations is the foreign exchange risk, which is a very real one. And it's not one that we can give a guarantee on as well. But there are ways around that as well. And I think the main thing is to find investors who are looking for not just the return only, but also who identify with the purpose of the investment behind it. So any investment that happens in a green project is not just to earn money. It's also because green projects generate premiums and results that can be captured in other ways, and that are actually more important for economic growth than just having a cash flow generated. So I think, sir, I completely agreed on the point about CPEC being the platform upon which everything should be. It makes sense completely to integrate those things together. There is one thing, however, that is important, which is whenever you talk about attracting investment, the rules of business and the rules of governance and the legal system, especially around how those investments are safeguarded, is really, really important. So I'd say that if we talk about things which are in our locus of control, the legal system in particular, the rules, access to justice, how quickly and how effectively can, issues be resolved on time. This matters a lot for investment immensely. And anywhere in the world where you see money flowing, you will clearly see that the legal system has been tailored to support investors and make sure that they get recourse to justice at the earliest. Absolutely. So that is, laws, property laws, in making sure that there are no gray areas in that. And that, by the way, holds not just for green investment, for any investment in Pakistan. We have to do that. The reason I think we have a golden opportunity when it comes to greening CPEC is there's already a lot of government support here. So I think if there's any chance of setting up, a tailor-made fast-track system that works effectively, it'll be for CPEC. There's another idea. I was in Dubai recently, and we went to one of the free zones over there, and they've got quite a few. Why can't we have a green zone in Pakistan, right? And why can't it be in Islamabad over here? Because imagine for a moment, if we set up right here, in a city that's already the center of power, you set up an actual free zone that is facilitating green investment, a green bank that is attracting funds, allowing people to set up, projects and manage and monitor them from here. We cannot just service Pakistan, we can service the region, in fact. And I think that's where we need to take inspiration from China, is that their vision is not just national, right? It's larger than that. So I think Pakistan too can play a role in the larger ambitions that have been set out there, but we need to do it in a way where we get the private sector on board. I'm not an expert in investments, right? So we need people who understand this domain well enough to be at the table. I think today is a great start, but we need more voices in the room, and we need to move towards actionable results. Yeah.
Perfectly. I think very relatable. I think the next thing is from Dr. Hassan Daud Bhatt, or if Zubairi Saab could also address. Why are we looking towards the solar manufacturing or localization of renewable energy supply chain through the engagement with Chinese stakeholders? And if since CTG is also working on that, so perhaps are they actually looking for is Chinese private sector interested in investing on those sides as well? This question is coming from Yasir Saab from the ELAB.
In case, if you see around the world, at the moment, China is the leader in the manufacturing of the solar and wind power projects. Even earlier, Europe was manufacturing. Now, the manufacturing in Europe has decreased tremendously. 90% of the world equipment is being manufactured in China. Although Pakistan, we have started, first of all, there is no market. Very small market. Although we understand the raw material is there, but we have to see the economy of this scale. If the demand is there, then obviously the manufacturing can be done. But to us, as we should learn from the world, why Europe has stopped, why other countries have stopped manufacturing solar panels and solar equipment, because you can get cheaper from the China. So first of all, there is a market, and then we should see economic, whether it is economically, it is sustainable to have an industry here, so that solar demands of solar panel and solar equipment is here.
Thank you so much. I think also the next question also relates to you, Zubairi Saab, that thank you for highlighting the CSR corporate social responsibility activities of Kero. But at the same time, what are some of the ways in which the environmental impacts of 720 megawatt Kero hydropower plant are being mitigated, particularly with respect to river dwelling aquatic life and river dependent fishermen, downstream farmers, and similar stakeholders?
Yes. Let me tell you that for Karot project, we carried out a world-class environmental study, which was done by basically Hegler-Bailey. This environmental study was approved, first of all, by our sponsors, the lenders, Government of Punjab, Government of AJK. Then it is being implemented. This is a first project in Pakistan in which biodiversity management plan has been prepared. This plan spreads not only during the construction phase, but in the implementation phase. For that, to have a transparency and independency, it is being implemented by the independent consultant, and that consultant is also being monitored by another consultant. Like Hegler-Bailey is basically monitoring it, and it is being implemented by IUCN. And then there is a committee in which the provincial representatives, in which the provincial departments are there to address that. So that is the precise reason I'm saying that this is environmental friendly project. The other thing is that it is not a basically dam project particularly. It is a run-of-river project. For run-of-river projects, there are not much environmental issue, but as the CTG is environmental conscious company, they have developed all hydel projects giving due cognizance on the environmental impacts. So proper environmental issues are being addressed in this project.
Thank you so much, sir.
But I have one point with respect to, setting up manufacturing plants, solar. You see, you can ask for anything, but then whether you have that sort of infrastructure available to have solar manufacturing, Pakistan still remains a question, और अगर आप आज एक रिसर्च करें तो आप देखेंगे, और प्राइवेट सेक्टर के अंदर रिसर्च करें, and to ask that how many solar panel and compare it with its equivalence of energy production, तो आपको लगेगा कि पाकिस्तान के एनर्जी के मसाइल तो सारे खत्म हो चुके हैं, because everyone will say कि हमने इतने सोलर पैनल्स इंपोर्ट किए हैं, को कहेगा इतने सोलर पैनल इंपोर्ट किए, और अगर उसी को ट्रांसलेट कर दिए जाए इनटू एन इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी तो बहुत आसानी से मैन्युफैक्चर। प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हमारे जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यहाँ पे सेटअप करने के लिए उसका इकोनॉमिक मॉडल अवेलेबल नहीं है। Unless you do not have an sustainable economic model, you just can't say कि हमें मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यहाँ पे करना चाहिए क्योंकि, and then uski jo cost of doing that work hai, of doing that, setting up a manufacturing plant, wo bahut zyada as opposed to, importing it from China and perhaps from other ASEAN countries. लेकिन वो अगर $2 billion की हमने इंपोर्ट की हैं पैनल्स, तो फिर तो यहाँ पे बिजली की प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं होनी चाहिए। फ्रैंकली वो ट्रांसलेट नहीं होता ना, आप इंपोर्ट कहते हैं कि हमने बिजली के पैनल इंपोर्ट किए हैं, उसके अंदर कुछ और ही होता। तो अगर $2 billion के अगर हमने सोलर पैनल्स बुलाए होते तो पाकिस्तान के अंदर बिजली की तो प्रॉब्लम ना होती, कोई और पॉलिटिकल प्रॉब्लम या पानी की प्रॉब्लम या सफाई की प्रॉब्लम हो सकती। So I think what I'm not arguing the number. What I'm saying is that आप अभी नंबर को चेक कर लें तो ये 2 billion तो इन्होंने कहा, इससे कहीं ज्यादा आपको नंबर्स मिल जाएंगे। So many solar companies are available in this besides these big companies. So I think ये
प्रोजेक्ट लगाया 4 मेगावाट का और फर्दर भी लगाए, तो कैप्टिव रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी कॉन्सेप्ट जो है हमारे इंडस्ट्रीज में बहुत बढ़ रहा है। और ये जो है ना, आप जिस तरह में नॉर्मली जो हम फिगर बताते हैं 6.8% का, ये तो पब्लिक में जो
what I mean to say is कि जो उसकी फिजिबिलिटी स्टडी हो, फिर ये नेचुरली हम चाहते हैं कि यहाँ पे ग्रीन एग्रीकल्चर, ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन आ जाए, लेकिन कॉर्पोरेट फार्मिंग के थ्रू या कॉर्पोरेशन फार्मिंग के थ्रू, लेकिन एक you need a economic model, feasibility is done on that. So I think we are far from there. हमें उसकी तरफ जाना चाहिए sooner or later, but I think at this time, क्योंकि आप ये पब्लिक सेक्टर की कैपेसिटी नहीं है, प्राइवेट सेक्टर में I think the big companies, enterprises at this time they're not willing to go towards it, I believe.
Yes, if you do have any questions from the in-person audience here, I would like to highlight anything. Sure.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you what strategies can be employed to ensure transparency and regulatory clarity for Chinese private investors looking to participate in Pakistani renewable energy projects?
I believe Dr. Liakati or Dr. Hassan could best address this.
जो है इसकी तरफ अगर हम कर ले, एनीवे मैं अपने जो है ना आपको ओपिनियन दे देता हूँ इसके ऊपर। रिन्यूएबल अपनी स्ट्रेटजीज की बात की, स्ट्रेटजी और हमने पॉलिसी की मैंने बात की, जब आपकी कम्प्रहेंसिव पॉलिसी ना हो। अच्छा, एक बात जो थी वो रह गई थी, वो ये कि अगर आप पॉलिसी, आसान साहब ने बात की कि आप पॉलिसियाँ से सिर्फ काम नहीं होता, ये बात ठीक है कि अगर पॉलिसी की भी financial support now, any policy without financial backing, I think it's a wish list. So the problem is in Pakistan, we have so many policies, but the issue is we don't have the financial backing to implement those policies. This is basically a problem. Otherwise, the strategies are there. But as far as a comprehensive strategy, basically to develop the whole industrial ecosystem, it requires another different policy. It's not only about, generation, because renewable energy policy is all about generation. Okay, we need basically to broaden the scope and put other, ancillaries, for example, storage. And one thing more about, the grid. If you want to develop the renewable energy system, you have basically to go for the storages, but at the same time, the smart IoT based grid systems also. So there is a whole bunch of things which basically need to be bundled up and then come up with a policy, but at the same time need to be supported with the financial backing that it would work in the end. One last point about the government sector. I think any infant industry, I think government have to step in. You look at the there is a very good book on the entrepreneurial state. You may have been through this book or not. Everything initially infant industry, even if it's USA, Europe, or whoever, basically it's the government who basically support them, and then the private sector comes in. Another study I would suggest, how the TSMC, the Taiwanese chip manufacturers, how they develop their technology. I think it's a great study. I think we need exactly follow the same step. I think, and if we follow it, I think renewable energy development in Pakistan is possible then.
Like to add that the main thing for the development of renewable energy and the strategy is that, first of all, there should be very clear, crisp policy document in which all incentives should be clearly highlighted. And somebody should guarantee that on the way, these will not be changed. What happens? We prepare a policy. After 5 years, all of a sudden, things are changed. Number one. Number two, there should be a very clear-cut agreements. These IPPs, we are talking about the private sector. Private sector whole building is based on the 3 agreements. Number one is the implementation agreement. Number two is a water use energy purchase price or PPA. Third is the land lease agreement in case of renewables or water use agreement in case of hydro projects. These should be very clear so that every investor should know what is the risk matrix, to what extent he will be bearing the risk, to what extent lenders will be bearing the risk, to what extent government will be bearing the risk. So risk matrix is very clearly identified from day one. And these agreements should be standardized. Whatever the forum is, it needs to be approved. And on the way, these agreements should not be changed at all. Because if these agreements are changed, there is a financial implications. The other thing is that we are talking about the private sector. Let me tell you that private sector is there to take all the financial risk, to all the construction risk, and all the operation risk. So these documents and policies very sacrosanct. These should be very clear upfront. Thank you.
I just want to ask you one question. What is your definition of transparency?
So basically, we're talking about increasing the Chinese investment, private sector investment for an energy transition in Pakistan. But hum log ki investment from the investment side, there are usually hurdles and hindrances in the sense that the Chinese investors, they're not sure of investment. Because there are a lot of risks, like sir said. Hum log aaj policy banayenge and then we'll be changing them in a few years. So ये जो transparency है ना for the Chinese investors, कि हम लोगों ने किस तरीके से, like if we're investing, तो हमें कितनी clarity है for our investment. So my question was from that point of view, and sir answered very clearly. Thank you so much, sir.
Good question. अब देखें, policies government बनाती है, makes policies. In our case, let me tell you, our first wind power project, which was commissioned in 2014, we have not been successful to pay the dividend as of today, because company has incurred huge losses.
मैं इसमें ऐड कर दूं, आपने बात की ना पॉलिसी की, ट्रांसपेरेंसी की। एहसान साहब ने आपसे अच्छा सवाल किया, मुझे थोड़ा सा फर्दर भी एक हैंड मिल गया। असल में हमारा यहाँ ट्रांसपेरेंसी का इशू नहीं है, कुछ ऐसी पॉलिसी इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसी जो हमने बनाई है 10 साल पहले, अभी भी वही पॉलिसी हैं. सारी पॉलिसी इतनी फ्रिक्वेंटली चेंज भी नहीं होती. 2015 में डेफिनेटली हमने पावर पॉलिसी बनाई और अभी भी वही है. तो ये यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम पावर पॉलिसी का नहीं है, सॉरी पॉलिसी ट्रांसपेरेंसी का नहीं है. इशू ये होता है कि इन पॉलिसियों पे हम कितना ऑनर करते हैं उसको. मिसाल के तौर पे मैं आपको एग्जांपल देता हूँ. हमारी इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसी में है कि आप ओनरशिप 100% ली, वो तो हम देते, इसमें मसला नहीं है. फिर हम कहते हैं रिपेट्रिएशन 100% कर ले, वहाँ पे हमारे ब्यूरोक्रेटिक हार्डल्स आ जाते हैं. तो पॉलिसी इज देयर बट वी डोंट बेसिकली ऑनर इट. सो दैट इज द इशू. और आई थिंक चाइनीज से अगर हम पूछें तो वो भी यही कहेंगे कि वो प्रॉब्लम हमने पॉलिसी तो दी है, लेकिन वो कहते हैं इस पे आप अमल. सर ने बात की, वो बेसिकली रीनेगोशिएशन वाली पॉलिसी चेंज नहीं हुई, रीनेगोशिएशन भी वो ट्रिगर कर रहा होता है. तो हमारी ये बेसिकली ये जो हार्डल्स हैं, जिस तरह रिपेट्रिएशन वाला सबसे बड़ा इनको मसला है कि पैसे जो है ना अभी तक डिविडेंड मिल भी रहे हैं, जो मिल रहे हैं मिल नहीं रहे, जो मिल रहे हैं वो रिपेट्रिएट नहीं कर सकते. तो ये बेसिकली पॉलिसी का प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक हार्डल का मसला है.
तो किस तरह होते थे सरदार यूसुफ, उसके बाद became वायसराय और वो सारा चला गया. आज आ जाएं इसके ऊपर तो वो मोहम्मद अली साहब अब वजीर भी हैं और SCCP के चेयरमैन भी थे. उन्होंने IPP वाली लीड की. मैं पर्सनली जानता हूँ बिकॉज आई आल्सो सर्व्ड इन SCCP. आई नो हिम पर्सनली. वो बड़ी अच्छी रिपोर्ट थी. चुनिया में आके पंक्चर होगी वो सारी. आपको पता है ये चुनिया में आके क्यों पंक्चर हुई. तो व्हाट कैन यू डू अबाउट इट. प्राइवेट सेक्टर को भी तौबा इस्तगफार करनी चाहिए कि किकबैक्स ना दें ना स्टार्ट के वक्त, क्योंकि जो किकबैक्स लेता है वो तो चला जाता है. बाद में जो आके स्क्रू टाइट करता है उसने तो किकबैक्स नहीं लिए होते. मैं चाइनीज की बात नहीं कर रहा, इसमें नहीं होगी. तो वो आपके साथ रहम प्राइवेट सेक्टर के साथ क्यों करेगा. ये स्ट्रेट बात है बिल्कुल. तो कोई मैकेनिज्म ऐसा भी होना चाहिए जो अप फ्रंट इस करप्शन को. फॉर एग्जांपल एक और मैं फ्रैंक हूँ कि हम बात नहीं करेंगे तो फिर फायदा हो जाता है. ये कहा जाता था, एक साहब थे वो जिन्होंने IPP की पॉलिसी 94 की बनाई, शायद कहा यह जाता था, मुझे नहीं पता, एक और बड़े आदमी को और एक इनको 6.5 सेंट पर मेगावाट में से आधा सेंट ओवर द लाइफ टाइम बिलियंस ऑफ गीगावाट उनको कहा जाता. इसके ऊपर वो अफरीदी एंड एंजल और मसूद एंजल, वो जो अली अफरीदी वाला, वो आपको याद है, पेरिस चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स, वो सारी गई और उन्होंने कहा किस किस के पीछे गारंटियां कॉल होनी शुरू हो गई सारी करने के लिए. तो बात ये कि इश्यूज एक्चुअली हैं, ये एंडेमिक है, सिस्टेमिक है और डिजीज लेवल पे हैं. इनको जब तक ना किया जाए, सिम्टोमेटिक ऊपर हम जितना मर्जी करते रहेंगे चलता रहेगा. एनरॉन अमेरिका में फेल होगी बिल्कुल. इंडिया ने कुछ, आपको पता है, इंडिया ने कुछ रीनेगोशिएट किए IPP के साथ ड्यूरिंग उसको करने के लिए. तो ये अब ये फॉर एग्जांपल जनरेशन तो है, ट्रांसमिशन का और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का जो 25,000 से ज्यादा जनरेशन है, 25,000 से ऊपर वो कैरी बेचारी नहीं कर सकती. ट्रांसमिशन लाइन कांपने लग सकती है, बहुत देर पड़ता है. कुछ ऑटोमेटिक सिस्टम. तो जब तक ये चीजें असल में अप फ्रंट हो के जब तक ये हल नहीं होती, ये छोटी चीजों के हम पेरिफेरल वो झाड़ू झाड़ू देते रहेंगे, साथ में पानी आता रहेगा.
I think this has been wonderful discussion, और I think इसके ऊपर debate हमारी ही चलती रहेगी. तो perhaps just going to Dr. Hassan Daud Butt for his final and concluding remarks. Over to you.
No, I think wonderful session. I just end briefly. A good question by that young girl also, and I think please remember, access to energy is our right, and and as a fundamental human right now, and for protecting that right, I think you all need to contribute more towards sustainability of our energy sector. And going forward, I think from now, in next 30 years or maybe beyond, when most of these youngsters will be where we are right now, I think you will be arguing on a new concept, even inclusion of artificial intelligence as it is coming. So I think Ved, especially you, Dr. Khalid, Tahir Saab here in SDPI, you should be champions of this, and along with us, keep holding and hosting similar discussions around CPAC, even around green investment in agriculture, because food and energy are now most vital components of our life, and you can't just provide good education, you can't just provide good agriculture if you can't just and also you just can't provide good food in your kitchens unless you have good means of sustainable means of electricity. So with this, I want to thank each one of you again, and especially the worthy panelists who've been there and who've seen it all, Tahir Saab also. But that does not should make us shy away from doing something great, because this great country has great potential, great endowment, great human resource. All we need, including the energy sector, we need a better transmission line, I think. for human capacity and also for energy capacity. So I think if we have better transmission lines, we'll be able to